All right, it is on. So this is Greg Stissel. He is with Austin County News Online. He has done a lot to help our chamber. He's a great moderator, and we are privileged to have him with us. I do want to remind everybody, early voting begins Monday, the 19th. So let's make sure that we get out and vote. It's up to us as citizens to bring in what we would like. So, Greg, it's all yours.
All right. Thank you. Okay, for those who are on the live stream, if you were there before, the same rules, we're going to follow the same rules as we did for the City Council. Each candidate is going to be given 3 minutes with which to introduce themselves. We will then take questions that were pre-submitted. We're not taking any from the audience. They're going to field questions that were pre-submitted. They get 2 minutes to give a response to each question, and then that is going to be followed up with a 3-minute closing statement, at which time, once that's over, the candidate forum is over. So we will begin. Each candidate drew numbers to decide their placement on the stage and how they will be asked questions. And the first person, I've got my timer here, the first person who can start is Ralph Bond. We'll start with you. You have 3 minutes. Oh, and just letting you know, if when I raise my hand, that lets the candidates know they have 30 seconds before their time expires.
Thank you. I want to thank the Chamber for having this and putting it on, and Greg for hosting it as well as being our moderator and everything. So I'll start out. My name is Ralph Bond. I've been in Sealy for 15 years. I'm married to Tara Bond. A lot of y'all might know her as Coach Bond, or your kids know her as Coach Bond. We've been here. We have 4 amazing kids. 2 of them have been through Sealy I.S.D. 2 are in Sealy I.S.D. now as we speak. We love being in Sealy. I guess I should tell a little background on myself. Actually, I come from the refinery petrochem business, managing through turnarounds and managing maintenance and overseeing capital investments for that, and working with private equity firms now. I've overseen yearly budgets of $289 million a year and stuff, so I'm actually fairly good at numbers and things. They just kind of click with me for some reason. But we're glad to be here, and I would love to have your vote for Sealy I.S.D.
Good evening. My name is Joe Mike Young. I'm running for Sealy I.S.D. School Board. I'm currently a board member and have been on the board completing my 9th year. I'm married to Teresa Sova Young. We've lived here in Sealy for 32 years. We raised 4 kids. All 4 went pre-K through Sealy I.S.D. graduated. The oldest, Christopher, graduated in 2011. Austin in 15, Matthew in 17, and Kendall in 2019. I came to Sealy years ago in 1986 as a butcher for Bill's Supermarket. I currently work in my father-in-law's machine shop, Quality Machine. It's on the north side of town. It's owned and operated by the Sova family, which I married into, and I do quality control, purchasing, and QC and all of that kind of stuff. It's been a pleasure serving Sealy I.S.D. on the board, and I hopefully look forward to 3 more years on the board. Thank you.
Okay, gentlemen, thank you. The first question we're going to field is to Ralph Bond. Do you have any solutions to help transition out of the pandemic status? 2 minutes.
Yeah, the pandemic, I wish we had a crystal ball to see all the curves that it still has out there for us, and I'm sure Mr. Hallmark would like that as well. But for the main part is, I believe it's going to take our community to team together. So as kids miss, in-person teaching and things, we've had some kids probably fall behind and need to be caught up. And we're going to have to work on that. And I think that's going to be creative from everybody. We're going to have to look at our community leaders. We're going to need to work with the city. We're going to need to work with our local churches. We're going to need to work with everybody to put that together. There's no cookie cutter, hey, this fixes it all. And I wish there was, but there's no way. Every district's different. Every district has their mountain to climb before them to get it there. But it's going to be a community involvement. So I encourage each and every one of you out there to get involved. Come to school board meetings, get involved and help and volunteer at our schools. Any and every place that you could plug in and volunteer is where I would ask you to be, because that's what it's going to take for all of us to come together to work through this.
Joe, do you want me to repeat the question?
Please.
Okay. Do you have any solutions to help transition out of the pandemic status?
Really and truly, I think we're going to have to follow course until CDC and the state, as far as the school district goes, we're really tied to whatever our legislature is telling us to do as far as in the school district, as far as what we can do. We've done very well this year with getting kids back in class. Last spring, everything was remote learning. We all know that the best place for Sealy I.S.D. kids is in front of a teacher in person. And that's what we're looking for and trying to strive to. And it's going to take a community effort. It's going to take all of us being smart and following the guidelines that are set before us and just go that route.
Okay, thank you. The next one, Joe Mike, we'll start with you. The next question is, what are the state education issues for public schools at the state level?
The state education issues to me is basically what affects us and has affected us since I was on the board, and that's mostly finance. And what are they going to allow schools to do? What are they going to give schools? It determines a lot on the local level as to what we're going to be able to do. And that's exactly what I think is most important. Thank you.
Ralph, do you need me to repeat the question?
Please.
What are the state education issues for public schools at the state level?
Well, Joe hit it nail on the head. A big piece of that is finance. With the change and everything on the way they compress the taxes and everything else, we're more waiting to see and learn what we receive from the state every year. So with that, we have to kind of figure that out a little bit as that change happens. But we also got to keep in mind meeting the expectations of the state as well. So as we do that, they do that by audits and different things of that nature, and I think we've done fairly well on them financially and things of that nature. But we have to keep our focus on every dollar. We still have to be reasonably and smart where we spend our money. Any dollar that we spend somewhere outside of the classroom is a dollar we take away from the classroom, is the way I look at it. So we have to focus on that, and that's money that can go towards teacher raises. It's things that can go towards teachers' bonuses and stuff to make them know that we appreciate them and to keep quality. I mean, one of the things we got to have here in Sealy is we got to have quality teachers, and we can't let them go away to other school districts because they pay a few dollars more. So as we can keep that, we are able to retain that knowledge in the way we can keep working towards it.
Thank you, gentlemen. The next question will start with Ralph Bond. What do you know about school funding in the school budget?
Wow. Several ways to answer that. I can tell you our school budget is roughly around $27 million a year. So that's kind of where our budget starts, and like we mentioned in the first question, some of that varies a little bit with the way House Bill 3 changed the compression of that on kind of when money shows up and stuff, which makes it a little bit more for you to plan your budgeting from there. So the truth is, I believe we do have enough money on hand to operate the way we should. I mean, there were things that were done good, and there's things I disagree with, and that's like everything. but we were able, through the pandemic, they were able to increase the general fund by $750,000. So even through that, once we get through this piece to see where we're at, I think that money needs to be looked at. A good portion of that needs to go to bonuses and raises for our teachers. And we got to look at keeping that money here for them to keep what I was talking about, consistent teachers, and keeping them here and happy in Sealy. Because our teachers have worked their tail off, I mean, through this pandemic, and they trust me, they deserve it. They've worked hard, and I'd just like to say thank you to them right now while we're here talking. Thank you for all your hard work. Thank you for everything you've done for our kids. Thank you for being willing to go back and get in person, because I think that was huge for our kids moving forward.
Joe, Mike, do you need me there and repeat the question? Okay. What do you know about school funding and the school budget?
School funding, part of it's from the state, part of it's locally. 80% of our budget is strictly salaries to teachers and to administration. The rest of it is basically roughly 80%. The rest of it is for maintenance operations. And like Mr. Bond said, our teachers this past year have gone above and beyond. They've been asked to do more than they ever have in the past. Last spring, they were teaching remote. This year, they were teaching remote and in person. So they do need to be rewarded. We do fight every year since I've been on the board. It's always a struggle to keep our good teachers here. When you have a district like I.S.D. just 15 minutes down the road, and they can go there and make quite a bit more money. So we have to keep competitive. We don't have to match them, but we have to keep competitive. Sealy has a lot of things to offer the small town community of living, and I think our teachers feel appreciated here. As a board member, have always reached out to them and told them personally how much I appreciate everything that they've done for us. Thank you.
Thank you, gentlemen. The next question, we're going to go start with you, Joe Mike. What do you think should be the top priority of all the Sealy schools?
Top priority is accountability, or rating, or accountability rating. We have to find a way, and we're working on that. We have strategies in place to get our rating up to a higher rate. Right now, we are rated as C. We would not like to be a C, and we're not trying to be a C. We're trying to do everything possible. They're working hard every day to raise that letter. But at the same time, we cannot just spend teaching to the test constantly. We have to let kids be kids. We have to let them learn. We have to let them enjoy other things besides teaching to the test. There's more important things than just that accountability rating.
Thank you. Ralph, do you need me to repeat the question?
Sure.
What do you think should be the top priority of all the Sealy schools?
Well, you know, you might say I'm being a little too simple about it, but it's our kids. Our kids are the reason we're here. Our kids are the reason we take y'all's tax dollars to educate them. That all comes from you. So we gotta have a priority on where we spend your money. And that's the way I look at it. But it's our kids, and it's getting them an education to prepare them for the next stage of their life. If that's college, if that's their career, or if that's the military, any of them. And we got to focus on having them ready for that next stage of their life. And that's being well-rounded. I agree that you can't solely teach for the tests, but we do need to improve our test scores. We got to work towards that and get them well-rounded for they're ready for the next stage of their life. As I walked around in the past and knocked on doors and talked to some people, you know, some of them told me, hey, I hit college and I wasn't ready for it, and I graduated. Our goal should be that we have our kids, when they say where you're from, that they say we're from Sealy I.S.D. and they're proud of it because we're one of the top schools in the state. That needs to be our goal, and we have to work at that. Now, I know that's a lot easier said than done. I know that without a doubt, but I go back to what I said earlier. That's where the community, and that's where all of us getting involved. It takes everyone to get it there, just not one person, not one teacher, not one school. It's all of them. We have several schools, and we have to get them all online for that. So I think we can do it. We can roll up our sleeves, and we can go to work as Sealy, and we can get them ready for their next stage of life.
Thank you, gentlemen. Ralph, we're going to start with you. The next question is, what is your opinion of the Texas Education State Test?
Well, sounds like we've been talking about that several times on the different questions and stuff. I think it goes back to what we're saying. I understand where they're coming from. The goals are to show basic skills on that test. And I agree, just like I said in the question before, not knowing this was coming, that you don't teach solely for that test, but we still got to educate our kids, and they still have to be ready for the next stage of life, whatever that is. So we have to work towards that, getting them a quality education when they're ready for that. And I understand, the testing, that's what you're doing. You're trying to see that they have the minimum requirements for that. But we got to understand there's other stages of this as well, and we got to work on that. I think that's where our technical trades and things come into greatly play for someone who's not interested in going to college at that time. We can work and get them moving towards it, and that's still a win. If that person, maybe his score is not as high as we want it to, but he comes out of our schools and he's ready to go be an electrician or a plumber or whatever that is, and man, we know we could all need some plumbers after the freeze a while back, right? So without a doubt, if they're ready for that, that's a win as well. So I believe the test, there's some importance to the test. We can't just have tunnel vision on the test, but we got to get them ready overall, ready for their next stage of life, whichever one that is. If that's career, if that's college, or that's military. And you'll hear me mention military quite a bit because I think that's something we leave behind quite often, is the opportunities there are in the military to continue their education, and we need to have them ready for that as well.
Want to repeat the question? Okay.
Please, sir.
What is your opinion of the Texas Education State Test?
I believe the test is important to a certain degree. We have to have a gauging system. Back years ago when I was in school, it was just strictly called an achievement test. But at the same time, it's so much hinges off of that test. As a district, you're given a score. Is it fair? It's so much things that can happen, and those students are just judged strictly on what they did that day. It's important, but it's not the most important thing in school. They have to be well-rounded kids once they get out of school, and that can be through so many different events. You have to have your core classes, that's very important. But it's also important to have the extracurricular activities that they participate in. I have 4 kids, as I said. 2 of them passed the test through high school without any problems. 2 of them struggled meeting their ELCs through high school through English. 2 of them went to college. One of them's currently in college. One of them's teaching an English class in I.S.D. right now, this school year. The 2 others that didn't go to college, they're making just as much money as the one that went to college. One of them's got his own business. He couldn't pass the EOC. He did pass it eventually, but it took several chances. He's got his own business set up that he's working cattle, hauling cattle, buying and selling cattle, buying and selling hay for all the local ranchers around through Austin County. The other one, he went on to is a heavy equipment operator for a major corporation in the Austin County area and beyond. Thank you.
Thank you, gentlemen. Our last question for the night, we've gone through them rather quickly since we only have 2 candidates. The last question tonight, and Joe Mike, we'll start with you. When someone complains, what is your approach to finding a solution?
That's real tricky as a board member. When somebody complains, I guess it depends on what the complaint is. But in the school system, our job as school board members, and our main job as school board members, is to hire the superintendent adopt a budget, and adopt policy. Our job is not to fire the football coach. It's not to fire or be after the principal because they told little Johnny he had to shave, or his hair was too long, or there was something wrong with his clothes. So it depends on what the question, on what the complaint is. There's proper channels. You must follow the channels. If it's at the campus level, and let's say it's at elementary, and you have a problem with the teacher, then my suggestion is for that parent to take it up with that teacher. If it's not resolved at the teacher level, then you take it to the building administrator. If it's not resolved at the building administrator, then you can come to the district level. If it's not resolved at the district level, which would be the superintendent or assistant superintendent's office, then it becomes before us as board members as a grievance. If I listen to all of that the parent complained about or complains about, then I cannot help them on the back end when they really need my help as the final jury on what their complaint actually was. So that's how you have to handle problems. Thank you.
Mr. Bond, do you need me to repeat the question?
Sure.
When someone complains, what is your approach to finding solutions?
Well, I agree with Joe and Mike that, we got a chain of command and we have to work our way through that. But one of the key things I think we got to remember is that we're all here for the kids, and we got to keep that, and we got to look and find common ground. I don't think anybody's out there to do harm for the kids or to create problems, but we got to remember that. And we got to remember our kids are always watching our actions as well. So if we go out there and act crazy, and act foolish, and just go crazy over the littlest things, they're watching, and you're teaching your kids that, and that's not the way it should be. We need to stay as adults and have open conversations, even though we might not agree with the conversation sometimes. We got to have open and honest conversations, and through that we got to work for finding common ground and move forward. It's not always going to be one way or the other way. You really got to find common ground to make it work for everybody, and that's what's fair for. But we got to remember the reason we're here is for the kids. And one of the first things we got to ask ourselves is what is best for the kids when we start down this path and everything. And sometimes we only have some of the facts, and that's part of finding that common ground, is to find all the facts and everything. So remember, screaming and yelling doesn't do a lot of good. Let's have open and honest conversations and be involved. Just stay involved is one of the biggest things I'd like to leave with tonight, is be involved. Know what's going on ahead of time. Get involved as much and as often as you can in our school district.
Thank you, gentlemen. That's all for the questions. We're now moving into the closing part. You each have 3 minutes for any closing statements you'd like to make. And we'll start with, Ralph, since you went, we'll start with you.
Okay. Well, I thank y'all for the ones that are here tonight, the ones that are watching online and everything. I thank you for taking your time and getting involved, as I talked about earlier. So I would like to ask you for your vote. I will leave it short and simple. Is my number one priority are our kids, getting them ready for whatever the next stage is in our life. Our teachers, and treating them with respect and letting them know how much we deserve them, and everything else. I want to be good on Christian values in our school, no matter what. We need to be honest and open with our kids, and we need to have good Christian values in our school district. And that's one of the reasons we live in Sealy, in a small town, for that. And then is to be good stewards for our taxpayers. Every tax dollar is important, and we can't just treat it like we can go back to the well anytime we want to get some more money, or the money's just going to keep going. So we got to be good stewards of our money. So I ask you for your vote. I ask you for them are the priorities that I have personally, and I thank you for your time, and have a wonderful evening.
Okay, Joe Mike, 3 minutes.
Greg, I'd like to say, first of all, I guess I'd like to thank my wife and my kids. I've served 9 years on the board. Some of the decisions I've made have affected a lot of kids. Sometimes our families. Sometimes it may not have affected them the way they wanted, or the community. And a lot of times my wife or kids took the brunt of that, of my decisions that I made, and that wasn't fair to them. I'm the one on the board. So I'd like to thank them for their support. I'd also like to thank the voters in the past that have elected me to serve on the board for 9 years. I really appreciate that, and I hope to serve for 3 more years. I would like to thank y'all for hosting this forum. You can ask Tammy. I called her yesterday morning and told her there was no way I was going to be here. I don't like doing things like this. I get nervous. It's just not my comfort zone. That's not who I am. I would like to challenge the community. As Mr. Bond said, you don't have to be on school board to make a difference in kids' lives. You just need to volunteer. There is booster clubs, there's band concerts, there's booster clubs, there's football booster clubs, there's band boosters, there's Tiger Stage Company booster clubs. Get involved. We have a wonderful school. Our kids do a wonderful job. They try. Our teachers do a wonderful job. Get involved. Our Tiger Stage Company is right now setting up at 8:30 over at the auditorium. They're waiting to hear the results from their one-act play. Hopefully they're going to go on to state. We have one of the finest drama departments in the state of Texas. But when they have a play, half the auditorium is empty. People paid big money to go to Houston to watch a play. Well, we have some of the finest actors right here in Sealy, Texas, our students. So get involved. I challenge each and every one of you to get involved. I would like to thank Mr. Bond and the fellow candidates. It's not easy to stick your neck out and run for office, run for school board. It's not an easy job. And I appreciate them doing that. Thank you very much.
Thank you, gentlemen, and thank you all for coming. That concludes the Sealy ISD question and answer board for the school district, and early voting starts
Monday the 19th.
Monday the 19th, and the election is May 1st, correct?
Don't give me a line on that.
Okay. So thank you all.
I remembered the date that I needed to. Let's all give him a round of applause. Y'all did a fantastic job. Thank you so very much. Greg, thank you.